Hello everyone, welcome to the Know the What, Why and How of Azure Cloud Migration webinar. Thank you for attending. Just a quick introduction, I'll be your host today. My name is Michael Burke. I look after the Microsoft relationship inside Telstra, and we will have Sam and Kieran presenting today. But before we get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about the Telstra and the Microsoft relationship. We've had a long-standing strategic relationship spanning over 10 years when we first started selling Microsoft online services in Australia. And then that became Office 365 over the next few years. And we've expanded our relationship to support Office 365 and Azure and a lot of the other new solutions that Microsoft have brought to market. So it's been a ever expanding relationship. We've leveraged our Telstra Purple team to really help Microsoft with customer projects and supporting customers as they transition from their traditional on-premise environment into the Microsoft Cloud. And recently, we had our CEOs, Satya Nadella and Andy Penn, at a recent webinar talk about how the relationship's expanding even more, which in the future we'll be working on IoT, Edge, AI, and digital twin capabilities, as well as the Microsoft integration into the Telstra Data Hub. So this relationship's been quite strong and continues to be strong, and we're looking forward to really growing the relationship between Telstra and Microsoft. Now, I'll quickly introduce the presenters today. First, we have Sam Bednall, and Sam has 20 years experience across the technology industry, across business consulting, solution sales, practice development, alliance management. So he's highly experienced, is a certified practitioner, and he's been helping, providing expert guidance across the global teams, supporting cloud technology and complex and multi-country projects for our customers. He's currently in a business development role leading the professional managed services practice, and he has broad background and experience across multiple technologies and has very well-rounded viewpoint across and deep domain expertise across many areas. So thank you, Sam, for attending. And then I want to introduce Kieran Talari. And he comes with over 20 years experience. 15 years of that has been with Microsoft across the APAC region, UK and Europe. And he's worked as a technical consultant, architect and technology strategist across Microsoft's 3 cloud strategy. His current role is Senior Partner Technology Strategist, and he works closely with Microsoft partners like Telstra in helping their customers on their digital transformation journey. Kieran not only comes with a breadth of technical expertise across the Microsoft technology stack, but he has a lot of experience across the strategic vision and guiding for successful implementation of projects and solutions and service delivery. So thank you for Kieran and Sam for attending. I will now talk about what the agenda for today. So we'll be focusing on a few different areas. First will be around how public cloud can accelerate your business and reduce cost and empower your workforce. Then we'll talk about the type of network required for a successful cloud migration. We'll talk to Telstra's 4R approach to workload and application modernization, and then we'll also talk about our server assessment, workload migration, and then customer success stories. And then there is also time for Q&A, so feel free to use the question tab to ask any questions, and we'll get to your questions at the end. Now I'll hand over to Kieran to talk through public cloud and Azure adoption. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Am I audible?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks, Michael, for introduction, and thank you for inviting me for this webinar and giving me an opportunity to speak about Microsoft and Telstra and how they are helping our customers in tackling their digital transformation journey during this pandemic situation. And thanks for giving that intro about me. Well, we all know COVID-19 have made organizations to rethink their cloud digital transformation strategy to scale for not only remote working, but for the next unknowns. That's including and not limited to network planning, workload considerations, etc. According to 2020 State of Cloud report from Flexera, early this year, if you look at the current stats of the cloud consumption for enterprise customers, we see almost 96% of customers are leveraging public cloud, and of that, 70% of them use hybrid cloud model to maximize the benefits of cloud. While it's no surprise that the pandemic is obvious driver for cloud acceleration as its flexibility and scalability for companies to make remote work happen, with recent global data report by Telstra, it shows that 95% of respondents will expedite to move to cloud to support the growing needs. It's also expected that public cloud infra market will grow 35% to 120 billion next year. I'll quickly. Right. Okay. Now, as we know, one of the key impact of the current pandemic on the business has been massive acceleration of digital transformation. To paraphrase our CEO, we have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months. The 4 pillars which we have shown to be an effective framework when we think about how to accelerate economic recovery and increase resilience are engaging customers. Things like how are we able to engage with customers with new channels during the lockdown. The other pillar is optimizing operations. How are we able to keep production line operational while ensuring safety of frontline workers, and also how to optimize the cost effectiveness. Empowering employees. How to enable employees to work from home efficiently, sales teams to do digital sales activities. Transforming business models and products. How are we able to improve online customer experience as the share of online revenue is growing? Right. As we see at Microsoft are committed for help navigate successfully for the new normal. When we factor in all the challenges companies face as they respond to COVID, with Microsoft in a unique position with our integrated cloud platform with built-in security, ease of use, and differentiated values to be strategic partner to enable organizations to respond, recover, and imagine what is possible with the business now and in the future. So no matter where you are in your journey, we have offers across, let me just click next. Yeah, we have offers across our solutions and service to support you, whether you're talking about business and technical assessments, proof of concepts and pilots, up until migration and deployment services, and as well as training enablement for your teams. We have well-defined offers and programs directly provided by us to also including our partners like Telstra to help you reach your future state of confidence. So I highly encourage you guys to keep the conversation going, and we are looking forward to work with you in your transformation journey. Last but not least, I would quickly want to like to talk about Telstra and Microsoft partnership. Any organization would look for trusted partners to embark and assist their cloud journey, and I can say Telstra is one for you. Telstra is, as Michael mentioned as well, Telstra is a leading Australian telco with 70 plus international business experience on providing quality enterprise connectivity and other network related solutions to customers in APAC, EMEA, and America. They're also our gold partner in 10 countries, the 10 categories, and many of which are cloud related, stuff like cloud platform, cloud productivity, data center, providing rich in Microsoft cloud experience and experts within the organization. They are also an Azure CSP Direct and MSP partners for Microsoft, and award-winning for MSFT partner for the year of multiple years. Finally, I can confidently say Telstra is a global trusted partner to help assist you no matter where you are in your cloud journey. In next 15 minutes, Sam Benil, the business executive, BD executive of Telstra Purple, would help you to understand about Telstra and their approach in the cloud and success stories. Thanks, team. Sam, all yours.
Thanks, Kieran, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. So, as Michael mentioned, my name is Sam Bednall. I'm based in Singapore. I've been living in Singapore for 10 years, and I have been working within Telstra and the new name for our systems integration arm, Telstra Purple. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with Telstra, particularly outside of Australia, we are Australia's largest and longest serving telecommunications company, but we've been operating outside of Australia for many decades. We have about 1,600 employees outside of Australia, spanning 21 countries now. We actually just announced our new Canada office, so we should really put a dot up in Canada soon. But we split the international business into four main geographies. Singapore is the headquarters for Southern Asia and India. Hong Kong is the headquarters for Northern Asia. We have our London office is the headquarters for Europe, and we have multiple offices in the United States. Our business in the US is quite interesting. It's where we service a lot of the OTT customers, including Microsoft, from our US operations. Just a quick snapshot before I introduce Telstra Purple and get into the crux of today. In our international business, we've streamlined our portfolio into four main technology pillars. Adaptive networks is the pillar that covers our core connectivity services, but also into the advanced software-defined space, such as SD-WAN. Data center and cloud transformation leverages both our data center assets, our co-location partners like Equinix, and the hyperscale cloud provider partnerships like the one with Microsoft that we're talking about today. And it's really this pillar that helps organizations modernize their data centers, modernize their application landscape. Modern Workplace, again, is very closely aligned to Microsoft around the M365 portfolio and the exciting proposition Telstra has around calling for Microsoft Teams. All of this is wrapped in a cybersecurity framework, security by design, but we have a comprehensive standalone cybersecurity business. Telstra Purple is the part of the business that I'm about to introduce, acting as the systems integration arm for Telstra, and we've got a number of key alliances of which Microsoft plays a massive part. So shifting focus and a little bit of a different color scheme, I'm going to introduce Telstra Purple. So the part of the business that I represent was initiated some 6 years back when Telstra realized we needed to have a technology arm to the business. And we've grown relatively rapidly over the past 6 years to form now Australia's largest technology services arm. Now, Telstra Purple has resources in 4 different regions around the world. We've got quite a comprehensive team in Singapore, and we focus on key areas such as adaptive infrastructure, which is where the data center and cloud practice falls part of, digital culture, which is where we align to Modern Workplace, and digital innovation, which is the exciting area around software development, data and analytics, and IoT. So you might have seen in the news, but Telstra Purple is the sum of many different acquisitions over the years, but we announced our most recent acquisition only last week, which is an exciting area around digital experience management and ITSM. All right, so let's talk about data center and cloud transformation. So we have been working with organizations for a very long time around their data center transformation. But we also work with a lot of organizations, especially here in Asia, that have adopted public cloud, but may not have built the underlying landing zone in the most efficient or secure fashion. So we do go and work with customers to understand what they're running in their data centers, in their hosting providers, in their public cloud today. We work with them to understand their application landscape and to help them define what that secure landing zone should and could look like. We have some tried and tested methodologies and service accelerators around helping customers understand their existing applications and form the best migration path possible to maximise the efficiency of public cloud services. Certainly within Telstra Purple, we've built a number of those accelerators, and we can share a lot more details in those as we go along. When it comes to, I guess, maximising the best use of the public cloud resources, there has to be a very heavy focus on applications. So Telstra is going to talk to you about the 4 R's strategy, but you might see some organisations talking about 6 R's or 7 R's, and we'll talk about them in a little bit more detail. But really, the opportunity is for us to go and run an assessment in a customer's environment, really understand their application landscape in great detail. And we will then decide the best approach to migrate that application or suite of applications to the public cloud. So when we talk about rehost on the left-hand side, this is often referred to as a lift and shift migration. And it's the option that lets you migrate existing applications very quickly without the risks or costs of making code changes. So it's really adopting, it's the methodology that we adopt when customers need to move applications to the cloud very quickly, where customers don't have access to the application source code. And we see that a lot with legacy applications that might have been handed through a number of different application management teams over time. Source code and documentation gets lost. And really, there is no opportunity for any of the other modernization approaches. The refactor approach is where you do have access to the source code, but don't really want to change the UI or the functionality. You do want to migrate to the public cloud, and maybe the adoption of containerization orchestration is the best approach possible for those particular applications. Moving into re-architect, and this is where you do have the luxury of modifying the code. And it's where you can really understand the code, determine how you can break it down into microservices and maximize the use of the platform as a services within Microsoft Azure. Rebuild, there are going to be times where the cost or risk of maintaining a legacy application becomes prohibitive. And this is usually the case where technology used to build the application is no longer widely supported. And this case is where we can consider rebuilding the application from scratch, really going into your business, understanding the problem that application solves, and determining how we can build that application from the ground up to make it as modern as possible. Now, you might hear of some other R's, retire. So this is when an application no longer really plays a function within your business. So you don't necessarily need to spend the money and time to modernize it. You can really look at how you can retire that application. And there's also opportunities to replace applications with off-the-shelf SaaS products. So you might have an application that does perform a business function, but there might be a third-party off-the-shelf application that is far better fit for purpose long-term than managing a custom application. Now, Telstra has a consulting-led approach to delivery. We start with the discover phase, and this is really where we understand your business, understand the people, process, and technology that forms part of your organization. We then use technology, tools, and workshop methodologies to understand what you have today. And I'll go into more detail as we go along. In the define stage, we will go into a design style process, really understanding the landing zone architecture that we want to be building for your environment, for your applications, understand what you have today, and build out a design that's going to be fit for purpose long term. In deliver, this is where we would build your environment, modify your environment, and migrate your applications to that environment. And finally, the drive stage, which is going into business as usual, but there's always opportunities not only for ongoing management of your environment, but for ongoing optimization, modernization. It's it's always an agile model that we apply here. Once we have migrated an application, there's always going to be room for improvement. Now, going into those stages in more detail, the purpose of today's session is really talking about the lift and shift style approach, but we're not disregarding the importance of the application modernization, and we do have another session coming up in the near future talking specifically around application innovation and application development. But really going back to the original assessment, this is where we will go into your environment. We would run some tools within your environment to gather server inventory list data, run it over a period of time to get trend analysis, trend data, usage information, so we can accurately estimate how much it's going to cost you to run those applications as is in the cloud. We would perform some assessment exercises, workshop exercises with your application owners to really understand the applications that you're running in your environment, determine the best approach for the 4 Rs or 6 Rs to migrate those applications to the public cloud. We would perform and provide you with a documentation and an assessment report with our recommendations on what to do for each of your workloads and potentially what the landing zone environment would look like. And a lot of the tools do provide you with some really good analysis of how much it's going to cost you to run those workloads in the cloud, and with our Telstra Purple team, how much it's going to cost to migrate or modernize those applications and move them into Azure. Now, the secure cloud landing zone is an important concept, and you'll hear about landing zones quite a lot, and we do align to the Microsoft's cloud adoption framework. But really, the landing zone is the concept that covers a number of different areas for your future state Azure environment. So we focus on things like identity and access management, governance structure, and that includes how you transact and manage your cloud subscriptions. Network, so not only network architecture within the cloud, but network architecture equally important in how you connect to the cloud, whether that be over ExpressRoute or VPN or some of the other more advanced services that are coming out around networking. Business continuity, so understanding how you want to provide a high availability and disaster recovery and backup architectures within your environment, whether you are able to run your existing applications in a different Azure region through your regulatory requirements, etc. So really understanding how we architect across the various zones and various Azure regions. Operations, SecOps and automation, really understanding how you want to manage or run this environment going forward, the types of tools and automation steps that we can introduce to make it run more efficiently. Monitoring and alerting is incredibly important when it comes to the landing zone design, and understanding the various dashboards and insights and alerts that are going to be important for you when you run this environment, or for your managed services provider to run this environment. And during the landing zone process, we also provide some training and upskilling. So there's a wide variety of things that you need to consider when it comes to a cloud landing zone, which I've just covered. What we also do in the discover phase and design phase is really determine the best migration strategy. And this is not only focusing on the applications and whether we're going to rehost or refactor, re-architect, rebuild, but if we are even just doing a lift and shift migration, how can we migrate those workloads in the most efficient fashion? We do work with your IT teams, your application teams to build out that migration strategy. But some of the areas that Telstra have been focusing on is around using Azure DevOps and some of the automation processes to migrate the workloads in a far more efficient manner to free up resources to be able to work on the more business-oriented elements within the project. Going into the deliver phase. So in this, at this point in time, we understand your environment, we understand your applications, we understand what we need to do to build your landing zone. And this is where we would go into the actual build of the landing zone itself. So some of the areas on top of the items that I've covered that are important and areas that we have had hiccups with, I guess, over the many years of experience and projects that we've delivered. But when it comes to building the landing zone, Microsoft have a wonderful suite of services within Azure, but quite often our customers have been using third-party services for a long period of time. It might be third-party firewalls, third-party backup services, third-party VPN services, SD-WAN services, etc. for connectivity. And we do have to do a lot of testing within that environment to make sure that the third-party virtual network functions that are available within the Azure Marketplace work as they say they do on the box. So we do a lot of testing within the build of the landing zone around business continuity, about failover, around the third-party tools and tests. We actually also test the migration tool and approach to make sure that when we have completed the landing zone and hand the landing zone over to whichever team are going to be performing the migrations or building the applications, that is absolutely fit for purpose. Right, when it comes to migrating the workloads, there's actually a lot of these steps that the customer themselves, you help out and play such a massive part. So once we understand how we're going to migrate your workloads, what methodologies we're going to use, what tools we're going to use, the actual synchronization of the data is actually the easy part. Where we have to work with customers to understand the process is really, even if you're doing a lift and shift migration and not modifying the application or the source code, quite often you are modifying the network path to that application. If they are internet facing, you might have taken the opportunity through the secure landing zone to introduce more advanced security features, web application firewalls, etc., that are going to alter the way your end users and your client applications now access that application. So there's a lot of testing that needs to take place when you do migrate an application to Azure, and that's really where your application owners and application testers will step in. There are a lot of post-migration tasks as well. So think of post-migration patching, optimization of virtual machine resources or underlying storage resources. You might have applications that are running on the operating system for the virtual machine that you've migrated that are no longer required. UPS applications, for example, they're no longer required if you've migrated out of your legacy data center into Azure. So there's a lot of things that we do around the migration of the workloads. It doesn't just happen behind the scenes as much as we would like. There is a lot of emphasis on customer engagement to make sure that this migration works as optimally as possible with the least amount of business impact to our customers. So once you've got all of the applications that you plan to run in Azure, it's very important to understand how you're going to manage that environment. So quite often, a lot of customers do want to manage these environments themselves. And if they do have the skills and capability, and we've configured the environment the right way for monitoring and alerting and automation, then a lot of organizations are quite happy in managing these environments over time. But certainly organizations like Telstra, we do have quite a comprehensive managed capability, Azure Managed Services capability, and we do provide things like service desk and event management, proactive monitoring and maintenance, onshore and reactive, onshore and offshore, proactive and reactive support. Service delivery, so really helping you proactively look at reports, areas for optimization, areas for cost optimization, security vulnerabilities, etc. And then providing governance and reporting for the environment. And I think the most relevant area of opportunity is really to understand, to be embedded in your business, understand the types of projects and business initiatives that you have, and provide technical thought leadership around how you can improve your Azure environment going forward. I guess just a quick snapshot of some base Azure managed services. So we do provide an automated support platform if it's going to be relevant for your organization, 24/7, follow the sun type support for proactive and reactive maintenance. I guess talking about the managed services, it's primarily focused on Azure for today's discussion, on IaaS for today's discussion. So really looking at running your virtual machines up to an operating system layer. But what's becoming more important, and we'll talk about this in follow-on webinar sessions, is managed services on top of PaaS. So platform as a service is managed services by nature, but there's still opportunities for optimization and monitoring and alerting and governance and security, because all of those areas are still relevant, even if you're running applications on a true PaaS type architecture. All right, before I get into some four quick case studies, and then we'll open it up to questions. We do have, I guess, a prepackaged server migration to Azure offer set. And this is approximately 5 weeks for 20 virtual machines, but we can optimize this depending on your particular environment. But we would go through the 4D methodology that I've covered today, go into your environment, understand your current workloads, understand your applications, go and help you design that cloud landing zone that's fit for purpose, that's aligned to the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework. We would help build and test that environment, or potentially modify an existing landing zone or an existing Azure environment that you have. We can then help migrate up to 20 virtual machines, but again, we can scale to as many virtual machines as you want. And then work on how you want to manage manage this environment and optimize this environment long term. So we've got some service accelerators that we've developed through Telstra Purple that can help you along this journey. Now, in terms of some case studies, these are all Singapore-based case studies, but we've built, designed and built and migrated well over 100 virtual machines for a local large organization. So this was a customer that had a data center that was nearing end of life. They needed to exit that data center and needed to migrate those workloads as quickly as possible. So we went through a discovery exercise, very similar to the 4D approach that we followed today. Ran some tools in their environment, understood the workloads that they were running. We worked with their application development team, application owners, to build out that migration strategy. We designed and built that landing zone, and we migrated all of the workloads that were in scope. What was exciting is we actually worked with this customer to enhance the services that they were already running in Azure and build out many net new applications, designed from scratch applications for the cloud. We helped them build a data lake platform for their data science team to provide a base for a number of different data science use cases. And that customer has adopted Azure incredibly well over the past 2 years. We worked with a luxury goods or e-commerce organization that were running a back-of-house application, a very large back-of-house application on around 200 Sun Solaris servers in a public cloud in San Francisco run by Samsung. And they wanted to optimize how this application was run. So this application, as I mentioned, spanned across 200 virtual machines, but they were really only running at 1 or 2% CPU usage. So we helped that customer understand that application architecture, understand the code base that we're running, and we containerized that application, migrated it into Azure, and implemented a full CI/CD pipeline and Azure DevOps capability to help them run that application more efficiently and push out the code in a more efficient manner. Another traditional data center migration customer case study. This is for an electronics company. So this was, again, another organization that had a data center contract end of life and needed to be able to get out of that data center in really quick fashion. So this was a project we delivered in around 2 months, from nothing in Azure to a complete assessment, design, build, and migration for all of their workloads that they were running in Singapore, with full high availability and disaster recovery. And finally, again, another quite large Singapore brand name that we'd all be familiar with. And this was really, I guess, an assessment opportunity, more of a consulting fashion. So this was a customer that was already using Azure. They already had an Azure environment, very comfortable with running workloads in Azure, but they had dozens of legacy applications that they really didn't know what to do with. So we went in and, again, performed a bit of a long-term discovery exercise, an assessment exercise, sitting with each of their application owners, their application developers, determining, getting an understanding of each of those applications in detail, what business purpose they provided, what the SLAs that they'd committed back to their business were, how they were architected, what type of code base they were running on. And we built out a series of recommendations and approaches to migrate and modernize those applications for best use with Azure PaaS services. So again, the customer actually worked with each of the application vendors to perform the application modernization and migration themselves, but they engaged with Telstra upfront to really understand those applications in detail and how they mapped to run those applications the best way in Azure. So thank you very much. I hope that has helped you understand a little bit more around Telstra, a little bit more around our approach to migration in Azure. And I'm going to hand the microphone back to Michael to run a bit of a Q&A.
Thank you, Sam. That was excellent from both Kieran and Sam. Really some good insights around how to migrate to the cloud and what are some of the key considerations. So appreciate that. Okay, so we do have a few questions, and we'll go through them one by one and I'll read them out. But for the audience, please feel free to use the question box and send in some more questions. So, okay, the first question there: what is the suitable model for app migration? Is it IaaS or PaaS? So IaaS as in infrastructure as a service, or PaaS as in platform as a service? In terms of convenience, SLA, and cost, what is the most suitable model? Infrastructure as a service or platform as a service? Who wants to answer that?
Well, I can answer that one, Michael, and I guess it comes down to the 4R approach that I touched on during the presentation, and the answer is it depends. You know, if you are running an application that is legacy, you don't have access to the source code, you might not have the documentation required to be able to modernize that application in a refactor, re-architect type fashion. Your only options are really either a lift and shift migration, rehost migration, or rebuild. So yeah, under some circumstances, IaaS might be the only option if you do need to migrate. The other element for IaaS is if you do need to migrate at pace. I used a couple of examples that we had customers that did have a data center contract exit or a reason to exit their data center, and they simply didn't have time to look at modernizing the applications to run them on PaaS services. So PaaS is absolutely ideal if you have the luxury of time to understand the applications you want to run them more optimally in the cloud, or you are able to build an application from scratch. If you don't, then IaaS is often the best approach. One thing just on the cost, though, it's quite often that running in PaaS is going to be more cost effective, undoubtedly. So your long-term goal should always be to run your applications in the most efficient manner, and that's when you're adopting PaaS services.
Correct. Thanks, Sam. Okay, next question. How would I prioritize which application I should migrate first?
Right. Again, Kieran, I can take this one. I mean, quite often we turn in the process that Telstra takes. We will look for a low-hanging fruit to start with, whether it be a dev environment, test environment, a workload that the customer is comfortable in testing the migration approach. And the reason we do that is to not only test the migration methodology without having direct impacts to the customer's production environment, but I think more importantly, when we go into customers, particularly the application and security team, we might be using terminology that might be foreign to the customer. They might not be as comfortable with the migration to public cloud as they need to be for when we go full scale into production. So it's an opportunity to migrate an application that is not business critical. So everyone is comfortable with the terminology, everyone is comfortable with the architecture, everyone is comfortable with the migration methodology before you start migrating your production workloads.
Great, thanks for that. Okay, we have another question here. So what is the largest amount of workloads you have ever migrated? So probably the biggest project. I'm assuming that's what that question's about.
Yeah, sure. Look, in Singapore, talking about our Singapore-based team, we have migrated roughly 150 workloads, virtual machines to Azure in a short period of time. That's probably the largest single project migration that we have performed. Certainly down in Australia, we do have customer examples where we have migrated over 1,000 workloads within one project. Quite often it's interesting with our projects that we do work with, if a customer has got capability within their organisation, over time, our involvement in the migration becomes less and less prevalent. A lot of customers, once they know the process, they realise the importance that they play around the application testing, around the scheduling of change windows, etc. And we've had a lot of customer examples where after we've migrated 50% of the workload, the customer's doing it themselves. So we do have customers that have migrated a lot more than the examples that I've shared, but they've done a lot of it themselves.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question. How do I manage moving my customer timelines when running Agile? So, yeah.
Oh, goodness me, that's a good question. It is difficult. Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I mean, everyone likes to be delivering projects or thinking they can deliver projects in an agile fashion, yet in a price model that's very much aligned to waterfall. I don't have a great answer. It's really around having a good relationship with the customer project team to run stand-ups and showcases on a regular basis so that we can prioritise where we invest our time. Really, and it also comes down to the commercial model that the professional services team and the customer have agreed to. Certainly when it comes to software development, because you do run in an agile fashion and you can change direction as your customer's business change direction, we don't see migrations of traditional workloads and virtual machines being really any different. We have got customer examples where we've started a migration workload and we've been asked to pause and focus our consulting time on helping them release a business critical application. So in short, it just comes down to an agreement and flexibility around our commercial model.
Thanks again, Sam. All right, the next question. Will I save money by migrating my application from my data center to the public cloud?
Kieran, that's the one that you can probably help with. I mean, yes or no, depending on how you approach it. I mean, I'm being perfectly blunt here. If you're running an application on a virtual machine in a virtualized environment on infrastructure you already own, and you migrate that to Azure and you run it as is for a very long period of time, the answer is probably no. But if you are looking to migrate that application as is, but modernize it the way we've mentioned today, and run it in a more optimal fashion, leveraging PaaS services, then the answer is absolutely yes. So, Kieran, I will ask you to comment, if you don't mind, on that one.
Well, I agree on your thoughts, but yeah, I mean, if you look at it, yes, having your workloads on cloud is definitely cost efficient, at least in the long run, especially when your hardware gets worn out, when you want to upgrade your hardware, perhaps the hardware doesn't support it, your application demand increases, those kind of scenarios, even your maintenance and all of the stuff really becomes cost effective if you move on to the cloud.
Excellent. Okay, I think we've come to the end of time. So thank you to Sam and Kieran for your presentation today. And thank you to everyone for dialing in. We'll send out a short survey after this call. And also this video will be available on BrightTalk if you want to share this with anyone else. So thanks again and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.